good afternoon, Floodgate family. Thank you for joining us for this edition of MedTech Emerging Minds. And I'm absolutely ecstatic to have a longtime industry executive, founder, innovator, Aimee Garza, who is with CEO and founder of CoraVie. So thank you so much for joining us, Aimee. I'm looking forward to learning all about CoraVie and some of the lessons you've learned along the way. But I've gotten to know you. We've met a couple times, but not everyone listening has. So tell us first a little bit about you.
Yeah, I'd love to do that, Joe. And just thank you too. I so much appreciate this. It was great to meet you. I think we met in person in the spring at MedTech MVP. And what a great event, and great to get to see you and your energy and your woo. Thank you for that. I'm an electrical engineer. And I have an MBA. I've been in the medical device industry for 30 years now, and I have had so many ideas. I'm just an entrepreneur-minded person. And so after so many years in the medical device industry, I took a leap and went in and formed CoraVie Medical to address some of the major challenges that exist in hypertension management. And just really excited to get this opportunity to really make an impact for many of these patients. It's such a huge challenge across the globe.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, tell us a little bit about what you're doing. And I'd love to understand how that inspiration, how did you get started? Why this?
Yeah. So during my 30 years, I spent 20 years at Medtronic. I spent a significant amount of time working directly with physicians and patients and seeing firsthand the challenges that they face and seeing the needs that existed to try to address a real unmet need. I also, being an engineer, I have to go back because, when I think about what CoraVie and how it came to be, it really started from my early experience in the underseas defense business of Honeywell. And I had the fortune of working on the Mark 50 torpedo, which the front section of that is sonar. And so I learned, wow, this is some pretty amazing technology. Wouldn't it be cool if you could take this sonar and make it really tiny, and the things that you could monitor and measure in somebody's body would be amazing. So it's kind of a combination of that early technology, getting really excited and geek out on this cool technology. And then combining what I see, feet on the street, patients day in and day out that need something better to manage hypertension, which is a huge problem. So that's kind of where I married a lot of these pieces together.
Yeah, no, I love that. I mean, you're engaging with physicians and clinicians and the patients. And I mean, the numbers of hypertension in the United States are astronomical, and only growing, unfortunately. And then you thought of that problem, and I love that the inspiration and the solve came from torpedoes. Seeing that what the sonar could do, what the sonar could read, and understanding and putting, I have a need. This tool could be the solution. And so, tell us a little bit about what that solution is. Tell us what the CoraVie, I guess I should say, product is, and how it works.
Exactly. Well, let me start with a story, and I usually think about Judith, who's one of my poster childs. I just love the story. But Judith was a longtime librarian, 60 years old, had just retired, and was looking forward to playing the piano, hanging out with her grandchildren, all the things that you do when you retire. She's on the phone with her best friend one night and felt herself slide between the bed and the nightstand. And she ended up having a stroke due to uncontrolled blood pressure, which left her with weakness on one side of her body, unable to hold her grandchild, unable to play the piano like she used to. So that brings a little, gravity to the challenge, and it's these dangerous blood pressures that get missed by standard monitoring approaches. And so that's where CoraVie, one of the basic premises of what we're trying to do. Doctors need better tools to be able to detect these dangerous blood pressures before it turns into a stroke. And so that's like the core foundation. So we are developing, and what I like to think about when I think about what we're doing, it's like physicians say this too all the time. We're like the CGM of hypertension. So we're doing for hypertension kind of like what continuous glucose monitors have done for diabetes, just dramatically changing the whole paradigm for how we monitor blood pressure so that we can identify these patterns early, to get intervention early, to just dramatically improve the way we manage hypertension and ultimately prevent cardiovascular disease. We will ultimately be able to dramatically slow the progression of cardiovascular disease, is what I see.
Yeah, no, I love the way you've really framed that, because you hear the numbers, 100 million at hypertension, but it's a number. But when you think about Judith and what she's missed out on because she didn't have that monitored in time, and know that was an issue and had those spikes that could have been addressed if they had that monitoring. And I know for the white coat syndrome, right? People have that elevated hypertension and sometimes put on medicines and they really are maybe hypotensive in reality, but they just were nervous at the doctor's office, right? But being able to monitor that continuously. Yeah, and the impact it had for diabetes, people, their glucose up and down until they were able to continually monitor it. They weren't able to see all those drastic changes.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of the things that I hear from physicians all the time is the patient dependency of current solutions, current monitoring tools is a huge barrier because, like you said, white coat effect. Measurement technique. Do people even measure the blood pressure correctly? Is the tool they're using accurate? Is it calibrated? So even if a doctor did get information from a patient from their home, they usually disregard it because it may not be accurate. And first do no harm. If this number is not right, I'm not going to make a clinical decision on a number I don't trust. So the way that we are doing our solution, we are eliminating that patient dependencies that exist, and it just provides highly accurate, reliable results.
Right. Oh, that's really intriguing. So, tell us how have you combined? How does this exactly work? How does this torpedo technology help to monitor this hypertension?
Yeah, so this is another analogy I will share, and it also goes back to my experience working in writing business plans. So I've written a lot of business plans over my time. One of those was for the Medtronic Reveal Link product, which was an implantable cardiac monitor that actually looks kind of like something like this.
Yeah.
Pretty small. This device and this business case turned out to be one of the fastest growing products in Medtronic's history. It's over $1 billion market today. And so CoraVie Medical is leveraging that same very successful playbook, just in the 10x larger market of hypertension. So our technology, our product is similar to this sort of concept that we are going for, a minimally invasive device, safe office-based, outpatient-based procedure. You can imagine, we have this vision of having a pen, your device is loaded in the pen, and you can do a simple insertion in a doctor's office. And then it's automatic from that point. It's a smart implant, so it's automatic, continually monitoring over day and night. And I think that that's a big thing. We talk about just getting a single point in time blood pressure measurement, but we talk about continuous, and what is the role of continuous blood pressure monitoring? It's about, the evidence talks about the need for nighttime blood pressure. What happens at night with your blood pressure impacts, your cardiovascular risk and target organ damage. we need to know what's going on at night.
Yeah.
We need to know what's going on over these periods of time from when you're sleeping to morning. It's like these circadian rhythms, and a lot of people talk about circadian rhythm with sleep. These things we're learning are so important in all health. And if we can monitor, which we will be able to monitor at night and day and see the trends over time and be able to detect this risk, that's a lot about what we're focused on.
Yeah. Is there any really great way to monitor at night today?
So I'm really fortunate that there's a product called ambulatory blood pressure monitors that have been around for a while and are definitely part of the guidelines. And it is really the only solution that exists today. So it's a traditional cuff-based system that a patient wears, and they might have a recorder on a belt on the side, and they wear it for 24 to 48 to 72 hours. And the cuff inflates every 30 minutes. And patients do that once. And the feedback I've received from patients is they will never do that again. Their arms are bruised. They didn't sleep well. Despite that, I'm very thankful that they have come into existence. This is how innovation happens, right?
Right.
You start with how do you get something new, and we learn now through ambulatory blood pressure monitors, oh, this is really important to look at what's happening at night and during day. And, we've learned and we have this need, and now we're improving upon that in many ways.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah, so it makes sense. So you have those ambulatory, but they're uncomfortable. I mean, something inflating every 30 minutes while you're trying to sleep. Like, I can't imagine you're going to get great patient compliance, right? But they've had enough to show, wait a second, this data has really changed how we're going to care for this patient. So this is important, and as part of the guidelines, right? So now you have data that people know is important, but they can get it in a very an intrusive way, almost, So it's really great. So where are you on the horizon? Where is CoraVie in the development?
So we've made some amazing strides. And I think being in a startup, this is something that's really important to take a step back and look at the big picture to see all that we have accomplished. I'm so impressed with the team that we have. When you think about it, when I started 5 years ago, it was an idea in my head. And I didn't license any technology out of a university. This is my idea, filed patents, and started working on this. And we have knocked down so many technology risks now. It's just really exciting to see the progress that we've made, to be able to say, we will very soon be able to say we can fit this all into a little implantable device that can be done in an office-based setting. And here's what it looks like. And get us to the point where we can start doing those first human studies. So that's a lot of what our focus is right now.
Right. And from a regulatory pathway, you've already got a de novo designation, correct?
Yeah, that's another thing that I learned thanks to just being in the medical device industry for so long. Before we even designed our product, we did a regular assessment, we did a reimbursement landscape, and we sat down as a team and strategized, okay, what do we want to do? How do we want to fit into an existing reimbursement code? What regulatory path are we going to follow? Do we want to be a PMA? Do we want to be a 510K? So we made a decision early on that we were going to go for breakthrough device designation. And we were awarded that, which was awesome. And then we also made a decision very early on that we're going to pave the path of getting new reimbursement codes, because what we're doing is novel. And we don't want to fall in. I know it's such a challenging situation for startups. Like, nobody wants to fall into an existing reimbursement code in one sense, because you're doing something cool and innovative, right? And you want to set the stage. Yet at the same time, it takes time and money to get a new reimbursement code. So because it takes so much time and so much money to get a new reimbursement code, most people say, well, I'm going to just build another Me Too product and fit into the existing reimbursement code.
Right.
We very specifically made a decision that we weren't going to do that. So we have breakthrough device designation that does support some reimbursement at FDA clearance. We're all excited about the path that we have. So de novo regulatory path, and we have a pretty modest lift when it comes to our clinical study to get our first generation product to the market.
That's incredible. That's incredible. Well, I'm going to continue asking a few more questions, Aimee, but we're going to have an opportunity to post below. And if you have a question, additional questions, please post those, and I'll pull those in here at the end of the discussion. So if anyone has any other questions. Now, I want to take a little different tact here, Aimee, and I want to learn a little bit about your lessons learned, right? Whether it's from your years at Medtronic in development or now, but what are some of those, lessons that we have other leaders, other entrepreneurs listening? What would you say are some of the mistakes and recommendations? So kind of two parts on that.
Yeah. So I would say there's a couple things. I'm just trying to decide which one I want to explain first. I think I'll pull in these two ideas. So one is listen first. Listening is so critical. And I know everybody that's been listening right now, and maybe you, Joe, have been in a meeting and you're trying to make a decision on something, and somebody's saying their viewpoint, and in my mind, or in one's mind, we're thinking of, how am I going to rebut what they're saying? What's my rebuttal going to be? And how am I going to win this conversation? Versus listening to the other person and fully understanding and appreciating their viewpoint. So I think there's just like this general competitiveness that we all have, where it's, well, but this is my point of view, and I'm not actually listening to what you're saying. I'm just preparing what I'm going to say in rebuttal to what you're saying. And so I think that there's a real value in taking the time to really listen first, to fully appreciate. And I'm not perfect at it by any means, being a competitive person, but that'd be one.
Yeah, no, I love that suggestion. I mean, one, that's probably a great suggestion for marriage or any let alone product, entrepreneurship. But I can really understand that, especially where, you've developed something, spent 2 years, thought about it, it's your baby. And to be able to listen to critical needs that don't align to what you've developed, and being open to receiving that, and and opening that door of what value is that, because that's hard, I can imagine, and that's a great lesson to be able to share for all walks of life, but especially in that crucial moment, because you get to market with something that the market doesn't want. No matter how great the technology is, if it doesn't fit the market use or access, it's never going to take off.
Yeah. Well, and to that point too, that is probably the second point to that lesson learned is understanding unmet needs. There's a lot of hype and excitement, and people get on the bandwagon for whatever the next new cool thing is. And what we do at CoraVie is focus on the real underlying unmet need, which requires listening. So understanding, if you have a real true patient unmet need, and you stay focused on the patient and the patient's need, I can guarantee you will be successful. All of the hype and all of the up and down and the things that come and go will come and go and do their thing. But if you're still staying focused on what that true unmet need is, you stand to make a real impact. So I think that goes to that listening piece. And, when I think about companies and ideas, it's having a true unmet need that you're addressing will make all the difference in the world.
Yeah, no, it takes that listening first, right, to hear it, but then understand and staying focused, not on the shiny object, the cool tech, but what does it really do? What are you really changing? How are you impacting? I think it was Janice's life, right? That's how would her life been different? And that's the core change, and I think that's really well said. And staying focused, are we maximizing that unmet need and filling that gap? Because if you can, the business will take care of itself.
Right. That's a challenge, kind of trying to weed through all the rest of the noise and stay focused on that. I think, companies can really find a sustainable business.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, if you have questions, please post them below. We have one question I want to bring in here for you, Aimee. So hold on. There we go. So we got Karen. What are the greatest lessons you've learned through both success and failures in creating breakthrough devices? So, you gave a couple there. I guess she's asking for maybe potentially a couple more specifically on the breakthrough. Maybe if you can share something specific on, creating new devices.
Yeah. Well, I think relative to breakthroughs, I do think it is making sure you have a real unmet need. And then I think when I look at what we did, we are taking known concepts. Ultrasound exists in medical devices, right? Implantable devices exist in the world.
Yeah.
They've been around commercial. It's taking these known concepts and combining them in a new way, really is what I see as creating the breakthroughs. Thinking outside of the box, outside of the medical device industry, thinking about, defense industry, and taking a concept from defense industry, but applying it to a medical device industry. I think that's a lot of what I try to think of. And I have a friend of mine, long time from high school, who's a fashion designer. But she travels the globe and spend times looking in totally different industries to gain inspiration. And so I think that I see that as a way to keep pushing the bounds and thinking differently versus getting stuck into this is what we do and this is what we always do, so this is the way we're going to do it.
That's interesting. I like that thinking, and really going out with that open mind for inspiration and what those opportunities that really can come together. Some of the great we think of as innovations, is Steve Jobs with the Macintosh, the mouse and the graphics user interface. He saw that at Xerox. He didn't create it, but he saw it, right. Married it with his delivery and product he had, and then we know what the history of the Macintosh is now, right? So it's kind of interesting. So we got to have another question we have pull in here from Brittany. What's been most rewarding part of shifting from building technology to building a company and culture?
I love building technology. I think that's where my heart and passion is. And at the same time, at one of my former companies, Integer Holdings, I was fortunate to set up our first corporate social responsibility program, kind of set the framework for that. And the combination of that experience I'm like throwing out these company names, but that time at Medtronic, I just so valued that mission-driven company, that really the people live those values. Like those two things combined, so that when I formed CoraVie Medical, it was right in the beginning. What are our values? How are we going to do business? What is my minimum threshold? If I'm bringing people into this company, what is my minimum threshold of what the skills or what sort of behaviors and attitudes do they need to have? And that, I think, is really, really critical. And it has to start at the top and work its way down. A lot easier to do at a startup than a big giant company, but you got to start at the very beginning and set the right stage. And, having the transparency, having the trust that you want to build, being able to have creativity and an inclusion where everybody's voice gets heard, because we're going to have a better solution when we do those sort of things. I think those are really critical when it comes to building a company and culture, and we're continually working on that. But I'm really excited, and so proud to have the team that we have, because we are all very focused on being mission driven. We're very focused on impacting these patients. We collaborate well together. We're team builders. We're focused on the end customer, and we're doing really cool, innovative things. And I think that's really important.
That's awesome. No, I love what you said there. It's just that it's not technology, then shift to company. It's from the beginning, where you're mission driven from the beginning, right? Why are you doing that? That unmet need that's really a patient's life. So you focus around that. You create those values before the technology, right? And live those values throughout the development. So it's really a growth of that culture, not a technology's done. Let's go build our culture now.
Right.
And I love the way you're thinking holistically about the impact, not just the technology, and the impact of the people. That's great. Well said. And and some good companies to emulate where you've seen that and learned it.
Yeah. I mean, it's not easy. I mean, even in the realm of investors, I mean, I will tell you, we had an investor that was willing to close our round, and we just, as a team, it wasn't a good fit. And it was in one way, such a painful thing to say, no, we're not going to take your money. But again, you have to really be thinking about, are you making the right decision for the company and the culture and everything that you're building?
It's a very good point. Investors become part of the team. And are they going to fit that culture and value and be part of the team in the right way? So it's more than just the money. And I think that's a really good suggestion. Aimee, I've really enjoyed the conversation. I know, speaking about fundraising, you're fundraising now to get to that inhuman, and other people, patients, physicians that are interested in the product. What's the best way they can reach out and get in touch with you?
Yeah. Well, one, follow us on LinkedIn, CoraVie Medical. Two, we are in the process of building a new website, which I'm so excited about, because it's going to create a vehicle for people to reach out who have interest, and get time scheduled, shared, whether it's due diligence files, etc. But I think those are two of the best ways. So reach out to me, DM me on not Instagram, on LinkedIn. Check and follow CoraVie Medical. On our website now, you can reach out as well. And we just really appreciate any connections. I'm all about networking and connections. You never know how I can be helpful to one person, or they might be able to be helpful to CoraVie Medical. And we're always looking for people willing and interested in joining our mission.
I love it. And we've posted in the comments below a direct link to CoraVie Medical's LinkedIn, so you can follow it. And I know you're going to want to follow, because I've got a sneaky suspicion there's going to be big things happening. It's really going to disrupt this market with the technology, because they're filling a huge unmet need. So congratulations to you where you are in those 5 years. And I can't wait to see what the next 5 years are going to be for you.
Thanks so much, Joe. Really appreciate all the time and being part of MedTech Emerging Minds.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks for joining us.